Welcome to Dear Fans. Here's a revised version of the story where Caitlin Clark replaces Sundar Pichai while maintaining the original style and narrative on a seemingly ordinary flight from San Francisco to New York. The first-class cabin became the setting for an unforgettable lesson in humility. Jessica Parker, an experienced flight attendant, encountered a modest passenger dressed in jeans and a plain black t-shirt. Her quick judgment led to a significant mistake in her professional life. Unbeknownst to her, she had inadvertently insulted Caitlin Clark, the basketball superstar, setting the stage for an invaluable lesson on the dangers of making assumptions based on appearances. As the morning sun bathed San Francisco International Airport through the expansive windows, Jessica Thompson meticulously adjusted her crisp uniform. At 42, she took immense pride in her position as a senior flight attendant, especially within the luxurious confines of first class. Today's flight to New York was another opportunity for her to uphold the impeccable standards she was known for. Moving through the first-class cabin, Jessica inspected every detail: the polished leather seats, the sparkling crystal glasses, and the meticulously arranged amenities. This environment was her domain, and she ensured it matched the high expectations of her passengers. Morning, Emily. Jessica greeted her younger colleague, who had only 2 years of experience. Is everything set for boarding? Almost, Emily responded, straightening a slightly misaligned magazine. Remember, Emily, first class isn't just about exceptional service, it's about maintaining an image our passengers pay a premium and expect perfection. As passengers began to board, Jessica positioned herself at the entrance, offering each traveler a practice smile. Among them were businessmen in tailored suits, women adorned in designer outfits, and even a celebrity recognizable from sports media. These were her typical first-class clientele, each person seemingly dressed in attire far more expensive than her own monthly earnings. Then she noticed a woman who stood out from the usual first-class ensemble. She wore simple jeans and a black t-shirt, carrying a basic backpack instead of a designer handbag. No branded watch, no high-end shoes, not even a luxury carry-on. She appeared as though she had mistakenly entered the wrong cabin. The woman quietly took her seat in 2A, one of the most desirable spots in first class. Jessica observed her with growing unease as she placed her modest backpack beneath her seat, lacking the air of self-importance Jessica associated with first-class passengers. Excuse me, Jessica whispered to Emily. Did you verify her boarding pass? Emily nodded affirmatively. Yes. Everything is correct. Seat 2A. Jessica frowned. In her 15 years of experience, she had developed an intuition for who belonged in first class. This woman's simple attire and relaxed demeanor didn't align with her expectations. Across from her sat a CEO in an Italian suit, behind her a tech mogul sporting designer sunglasses. The woman in 2A, however, seemed completely indifferent to the surrounding luxury. She opened her laptop, one that wasn't even the latest model, and began working quietly. She made no requests for pre-flight champagne, didn't complain about the cabin temperature, and exhibited none of the typical first-class behaviors. Jessica was accustomed to something felt off. Jessica muttered to herself, rechecking the passenger manifest. The name listed for 2A, Caitlin Clark, didn't ring any bells for her. As boarding continued, Jessica frequently glanced at the woman in 2A, noticing how engrossed she was in her work, barely acknowledging when Emily offered her a drink. She simply requested water, plain water, without even considering sparkling. Then a group of young sports executives boarded, their lively conversations adding to the cabin's atmosphere. As they passed row 2, one of them halted abruptly, eyes widening as he recognized the woman in 2A. Before he could say anything, his colleague urged him to sit, leaving Jessica more suspicious. The executives continued to steal glances at 2A, whispering among themselves, while the woman remained focused on her laptop, occasionally typing away. With the final boarding call echoing through the terminal, Jessica decided she needed to double-check this passenger's credentials. It was her duty to maintain first-class standards, and she couldn't allow someone she perceived as unfit to cause discomfort among other passengers. Little did she realize that her commitment to these standards would soon lead her into an incredibly embarrassing situation. As the cabin doors closed and the captain announced their departure to New York, Jessica straightened her uniform once more, preparing to approach seat 2A. Confident in her 15 years of experience, she believed she was making The right decision, however. As the plane reached cruising altitude, her unease about the passenger persisted. Observing how different she was from the other first-class travelers, Jessica felt something was amiss. "More water, ma'am?" she inquired, approaching 2A. With a strange smile, the woman looked up, her gentle eyes meeting Jessica's with a kind expression. "Yes, please, thank you," she responded softly. "No demands, no special requests, just simple politeness," which only heightened Jessica's suspicions. Behind her, she heard whispers from the sports executives. "I can't believe it's her," one murmured. "Should we greet her?" another replied. Jessica noticed their excited faces as they eyed Cat 2A. During meal service, she observed how the woman politely accepted her food without making any special requests, unlike other passengers who were selecting specific wines, desserts, and customized meals. "Emily," Jessica called her colleague aside, "don't you find something odd about 2A?" Emily looked puzzled. "She seems nice, very polite, actually too polite," Jessica countered. "And look at her attire. This is first class, not a coffee shop." Passing by her seat again, Jessica noticed the woman was on a video call. She slowed down, attempting to catch snippets of the conversation. Terms like basketball contract, championship caught her attention, but she dismissed it as her watching sports news. Then one of the executives stood up, unable to contain himself any longer. "That's Caitlin Clark," he exclaimed, "the best basketball player in the world right now." Jessica felt her face flush with embarrassment as the realization hit her like a wave. The whispers around the cabin turned to murmurs of recognition. Passengers who hadn't noticed her before were now pulling out their phones. Jessica's hands trembled slightly as she still clutched the passenger manifest. A businessman across the aisle shook his head. "I tried to warn you," he muttered. Emily dropped the napkin she was holding, whispering, "Oh my God." Caitlin Clark remained composed, offering a polite smile. "It's really not necessary," she said gently. Moments later, the flight captain arrived, out of breath from rushing to the cabin. "Miss Clark," he said, addressing her with obvious respect, "I just heard about the situation. Please accept our sincere apologies." Turning to Jessica, his expression was stern. "Miss Thompson, please come to the galley for a word." As Jessica followed the captain, her legs felt weak. She could hear passengers discussing the incident. "Can you believe she treated Caitlin Clark like that? She thought she didn't belong here. Did you see how she handled it? So much class in the galley." The captain didn't mince words. "Do you realize what you've done? Caitlin Clark is a sports icon. You judged her solely based on her appearance." Jessica's voice was barely audible. "I didn't know." The captain's response was firm. "That's the problem." Back in the cabin, Caitlin simply resumed her work, unfazed by the entire ordeal. She didn't need to prove herself. She let her legacy speak for itself. And for Jessica, the lesson of a lifetime had just begun. Jessica stood in the galley, her impeccable uniform now feeling like an ill-fitting costume. Through the curtain, she saw Caitlin Clark returned to her work as if nothing had happened. Her calm demeanor, despite the humiliating situation, only made Jessica feel worse. The captain's final words echoed in her mind. "You judged her solely based on her appearance." Jessica knew she had to confront her mistake. With trembling hands and her head bowed, she stepped back into the first-class cabin. Other passengers watched her every move, some shaking their heads in disapproval. She approached seat 2A once more. "Miss Clark," she began softly, "may I speak with you for a moment?" Caitlin looked up from her laptop and offered a gentle smile. "Of course." She closed her computer, her expression warm but unreadable. Jessica struggled to find the right words. I am deeply sorry for how I treated you earlier. I was completely wrong to judge you based on your appearance." Caitlin's response surprised everyone. "You know," Caitlin said, her voice thoughtful, "when I was younger, people underestimated me. All the time they said I wasn't tall enough, strong enough, or fast enough to make it big in basketball. I had to prove myself every step of the way." She paused, studying Jessica's remorseful expression. "What you did today, it's something I've encountered my entire career." Tears welled in Jessica's eyes. "That makes it even worse, ma'am." Caitlin shook her head. "No, it makes it a perfect learning opportunity." She gestured subtly toward the cabin. "Look around you. What do you see?" Jessica's gaze swept across the passengers, men and women dressed in expensive suits, designer brands, and high-end accessories. "And what do those things say about their character, their abilities, their worth as human beings?" Caitlin continued. Jessica hesitated, realizing just how flawed her mindset had been. A young executive who had been listening spoke up. "Caitlin Clark is one of the greatest basketball players in the world, and she doesn't need flashy clothes to prove it. That's what makes her so inspiring." Other passengers chimed in, sharing their own experiences of being misjudged based on their appearance. A businessman admitted he had faced discrimination for dressing casually in corporate settings. A famous actress recounted how she was treated differently when she went out without makeup. Emily, who had been observing, quietly stepped forward. I always thought luxury meant expensive things, she said, but true class isn't about what you wear, is it? Caitlin smiled. True class is how you treat others. It's about dignity, respect, and understanding that appearances don't define a person's worth. Jessica stood there absorbing every word. Her flawless uniform, once worn as armor, now felt insignificant compared to the lesson she was receiving. Caitlin continued, at the highest level of basketball, I play alongside the best. We all come from different backgrounds, but on the court what matters isn't how we look, it's how we perform, how we respect each other, and how we lead by example. A passenger who had previously criticized Jessica spoke up. I was angry at how you treated her, but watching how she handled this, I'm learning something too. Jessica wiped a tear from her eye. All these years I thought I was maintaining standards, but I was just being shallow and prejudiced. Recognition is the first step to change, Caitlin said. Kindly use this experience not as a source of shame, but as a catalyst for growth. The cabin crew had gathered nearby, listening intently. The captain, who had earlier reprimanded Jessica, nodded approvingly. Jessica took a deep breath. From now on, I'll remember that true first-class service isn't about judging appearances, it's about treating everyone with respect and dignity. Caitlin reached into her backpack and pulled out a book. Here, she said, handing it to Jessica. This book helped shape my mindset as an athlete. Maybe it'll help you see things differently too. Jessica held the book, knowing this moment was far more valuable than any luxury brand. Emily summed it up perfectly today. Caitlin didn't just teach us about not judging by appearances, she showed us what real leadership looks like. The once tense atmosphere in the first-class cabin had completely transformed. What started as an embarrassing incident evolved into a powerful lesson that resonated with everyone on board. As the plane began its descent into New York, Jessica returned to Caitlin's seat one final time. She offered her a glass of water, not because Caitlin had asked for it, but because she had noticed earlier that Caitlin preferred water over champagne. Thank you for teaching me something I should have learned years ago, she said softly. Caitlin looked up, her signature composed smile in place. Sometimes the best lessons come from our most uncomfortable moments. As passengers prepared to disembark, many stopped by Caitlin's seat. The young SAHOO asked for quick selfies, which she agreed to with characteristic humility. Others simply wanted to express their gratitude for how she had handled the situation with grace. Clark, the captain, addressed her as she emerged from the cockpit. It's been an honor having you on board. Your handling of this situation will be used as a training example for our crew. By the time the plane landed, social media was already buzzing. Passengers who had witnessed everything shared posts about Caitlin's humility. Just saw Caitlin Clark turn discrimination into a masterclass in leadership. No anger, just wisdom. Respect. Witness to flight attendant Judge Caitlin Clark based on her simple attire in first class. Her response, pure class. Today I learned that true luxury isn't about what you wear, it's about how you treat others. The airline's corporate office quickly reached out to both Caitlin and Jessica. To Jessica's surprise, instead of punishment, she was invited to help develop a new training program focused on eliminating bias and prejudice in customer service. 1 month later, Jessica stood before a group of new flight attendants. Recounting her story, I spent 15 years believing I understood what first class meant, she shared. Then I met a woman in jeans and a t-shirt who taught me that true class has nothing to do with appearances. A video of her training session went viral, amassing millions of views. Service industry workers worldwide shared similar experiences and committed to changing their approach. At an event months later, Caitlin was asked about the flight incident. She responded simply, "You can't control how people judge but you can control how you respond. The best way to change minds is to lead by example." Meanwhile, back at the airline, Jessica's perspective had completely transformed. Her old uniform still looked immaculate, but she wore it differently now, not as a barrier between herself and passengers, but as a reminder to treat everyone with equal respect. One day, Emily approached her with a smile. Since that flight, our passenger satisfaction scores have actually gone up. Turns out people prefer being treated with respect over being judged by their attire. The story became an integral part Of airline training programs worldwide, crew members learned that true luxury service isn't about policing appearances, it's about treating people with dignity. And as for Caitlin Clark, she continued leading on and off the court, proving that true greatness isn't measured by what you wear, it's measured by the respect you show to others. Jessica kept the book Caitlin had given her on her bedside table. The inscription read, "Our greatest power lies not in judging others, but in understanding them." Now, whenever Jessica saw someone in simple attire sitting in first class, she smiled, remembering the day she learned what true class truly means. Like this video and subscribe this channel. Thank you.